Everyone in the diner turned when the man at table 7 stood up. He didn't look like he had much, his coat was faded, his jeans patched at the knees, and his boots looked like they'd walked through more hard years than miles. But when he reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, there was something noble in the way he moved. No hesitation. No second thoughts. "I got it," he said quietly, laying the bill on the counter. "Her meal's on me." The girl had already started eating, tearing into the sandwich like she hadn't had food in days. She couldn't have been older than 16, tiny, with tangled auburn hair and nervous green eyes. Her hoodie was too thin for the December cold, and the duct-taped shoes on her feet were soaked through. Everyone had seen her sneak in, thought maybe she was just cutting through. But then she grabbed the sandwich off the edge of the counter, and people started to whisper. No one expected a man like that. An older black man with rough hands and tired eyes, to be the one who stood up for her. He didn't make a speech. He didn't wait for applause. He paid, turned, and started walking toward the door. The girl chased after him, sandwich in hand. "Wait," she called, voice cracking from disuse. "Why'd you do that?" He stopped but didn't look back right away. When he finally turned, his expression was calm but heavy, like someone who had lived through more than he could ever say. "No one should go hungry," he told her. "Especially not a kid." His name was Marvin. 54 years old. He lived in a cramped maintenance room in the back of Grace Community Church on the south side of Dayton, Ohio. In exchange for meals and a cot, he swept the hallways, patched the leaky roof, and helped the pastor keep the heat running through the winter. He didn't have a car or a phone, and no family had called in years. But he had a steady way about him, like he was anchored by something the rest of the world had forgotten. The girl hesitated before telling him her name. "I'm Callie," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marvin nodded. "You got somewhere to be tonight?" She shook her head. He looked up at the gray clouds overhead, then back at her. "You can stay at the church. Just for tonight. It's warm, and the doors lock." Callie followed him. She didn't know why, maybe because no one had offered her anything in so long, not even a place to rest her head. Inside the church, the pews smelled like old wood and lemon oil. Marvin pulled a blanket from the supply closet and handed it to her. He pointed to a long bench under a stained glass window. "You can sleep there. I'll be just down the hall if you need anything." She didn't answer. Just curled up, clutching the blanket, and stared up at the colored glass until her eyes closed. In the morning, Marvin was already in the small kitchen, boiling oatmeal on a hot plate. He offered her a bowl and a spoon. She ate like it might vanish if she looked away. "You a preacher or something?" she asked between bites. He gave a low chuckle. "Not even close. Just a man trying to stay warm." She nodded but said nothing more. Over the next few days, Callie didn't leave. She swept the sanctuary with Marvin and helped him box up canned goods for the food pantry. She didn't say much, but Marvin wasn't one to push. When she was ready, he figured she'd talk. One day, a woman named Janice came by. She wore a blazer too sharp for the neighborhood and carried a government-issued clipboard. A social worker. She glanced at Callie and raised an eyebrow. "She with you?" she asked Marvin. "She's safe," Marvin said carefully. "She's also underage," Janice replied. "You know I have to report this." Callie's face went pale. She dropped the can she was holding. "No," she shouted. "I'm not going back. You can't make me." Janice's tone softened. "Back where, sweetheart?" But Callie turned and bolted out the side door before anyone could stop her. Marvin didn't chase her. Just sighed and looked at Janice. "She comes and goes," he said. "She don't hurt nobody. I just make sure she eats." Janice nodded slowly. "I get it. But if something happens." "I know. That night, Marvin left the side door cracked open, just a sliver. Around 2 a.m., he heard the hinges creak. He didn't move. "I brought the blanket back," Callie whispered from the doorway. "You don't have to," Marvin said softly. "You can keep it. And the bench is still there." She didn't answer, but he heard her lay down. She stayed again the next night. And the one after that. Winter deepened, and Callie began spending full days at the church. She helped Marvin carry crates, organize old hymnals, and stack folding chairs for Sunday services. Slowly, she began to trust him. She laughed once when he burned a tray of cornbread so badly it looked like bricks. Marvin pretended to be offended, but he couldn't hide his grin. One afternoon, while they were decorating the sanctuary for Christmas, Marvin heard her humming a tune. It was faint but beautiful, almost too soft to catch. "You sing?" he asked. Callie blushed and shrugged. "Used to. My mom sang all the time. I just picked it up. Sing something for me." "No way," she said, shaking her head. "I ain't singing in front of people." "I'm not people," he said with a smile. "Just me." She looked away but, after a long pause, softly began singing a hymn. Her voice was gentle, uncertain, but it floated through the church like a breeze through open windows. When she finished, Marvin sat back, stunned. "That's a gift, Callie," he said. "Don't ever let the world make you hide that." She looked down. "It's just a voice." "No. It's hope. And you've got more of it than you think." The following Sunday, Marvin convinced her to sing during the service. It took some coaxing, but she finally agreed, on one condition. The lights had to stay low, and she'd only sing from the back of the sanctuary. That morning, with the congregation settled into the pews, Marvin gave a nod. Callie stepped into view, her hoodie pulled over her head. She opened her mouth, and the first note silenced the room. Her voice was haunting and raw, like pain turned into melody. By the time she finished, people had tears in their eyes. One elderly woman stood and began clapping. Others followed. Callie lowered her head, overwhelmed. But Marvin just gave her a proud look, the kind of look a father might give a daughter. From that day forward, things began to change. People in the neighborhood came just to hear her sing. A music teacher offered her lessons for free. Someone donated a second-hand guitar. She was still quiet, still guarded, but she was growing. Still, her past lingered like a shadow. One snowy evening, as they sat in the chapel after cleaning up from a food drive, Callie finally spoke. "I was in 6 foster homes before I ran. They didn't care. Nobody ever did." Marvin didn't say anything for a while. Then he looked her straight in the eye. "Well, I care. And this place, you've got roots here now. But what if they find me? What if someone comes?" "They won't," he promised. "And if they do, I won't let them take you." But just as the world started to feel safe again, someone came walking through the door who would change everything. The next day, Marvin was in the church office sorting through donation envelopes when the heavy oak door creaked open. A tall man in a dark coat stepped inside, his eyes scanning the sanctuary like he was looking for someone specific. "Can I help you?" Marvin asked, wiping his hands on a rag. The man pulled out a wallet and flashed a badge. "Detective Ross Harding. I'm with the Dayton PD." Marvin's face didn't flinch, but his gut tightened. "We haven't had any trouble here." "I'm not here for trouble," the detective said. "I'm looking for a girl. 16. Auburn hair. Thin build. Her name's Callie Hart." At that moment, Callie was in the back hallway, tuning her donated guitar. She froze when she heard her name echo off the church walls. Harding continued, "She ran from a foster home 6 months ago. Been missing ever since. The department flagged a community report after someone posted a video online, her singing during service. Marvin clenched his jaw. He knew exactly who had filmed it. A well-meaning churchgoer who thought the world needed to hear her voice. "She's not in danger here," Marvin said firmly. "I don't doubt that," Harding replied. "But legally, she's a minor. We've got to make sure she's safe, and placed appropriately." Callie crept back down the hallway, eyes wide. "You're gonna take me back, aren't you?" The detective turned to her. "We just want to talk, Callie. Figure out what's best." "I already know what's best," she snapped. "This place, Marvin, this is the only safe I've ever known." "Callie," Marvin said gently, stepping toward her. "Let's just hear what he has to say." "No. They're gonna stick me in another house, with people who lock their doors and pretend I'm not there. I'm not going back to that." The detective softened. "Look, I read the file. I know it wasn't good. But things have changed, there's a family interested in fostering teens. Real people. We just need to evaluate the situation." Callie stepped back, fists clenched. "I don't trust anyone but him." Marvin placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let me speak for you. Sit down, breathe, and let me talk." The detective agreed to return the next day. Marvin spent the night calling every contact he had, Janice the social worker, the pastor, even the music teacher who had been working with Callie. They all wrote letters, signed statements, vouched for her stability and growth. By morning, a caseworker from the county arrived with a proposal. Callie could stay under Marvin's guardianship temporarily, if he passed a background check and agreed to regular oversight. Marvin didn't hesitate. He handed over his ID, social security number, and references. "Run whatever you need," he said. "I'm not letting her go back to what broke her." For the next few weeks, things were tense. Visits from social workers, surprise check-ins, interviews. But Marvin passed every hurdle. He had no criminal record. No history of neglect. Just a long, quiet paper trail of service and struggle. And everywhere Callie went, people spoke up for her, especially when she sang. Her voice had begun reaching further now. Someone from a local radio station recorded her and invited her to perform live. A local paper ran a piece titled, "From the Streets to the Sanctuary, the Voice of a Lost Girl Finding Her Way." Still, even as her star quietly rose, Callie never left Marvin's side. Not when the church pipes burst. Not when the heater gave out for 3 days in January. Not when a vandal threw a brick through the stained glass window. "You could go," Marvin said once, watching her tune her guitar by candlelight. "Somewhere easier. Safer." She shook her head. "I'm not going anywhere unless you're going too." Then came the invitation that changed everything. A producer from a national talent show had seen the video of her church performance. They wanted her to audition, expenses paid. It was a long shot, but it could mean real opportunity. Not just for her singing, but for college, a future, a new start. Callie sat on the edge of the pew, holding the letter with shaking hands. "What if I mess it up?" she asked. Marvin knelt beside her. "Then you try again. That's life. But you've got something people need to hear." She looked up at him. "Will you come with me?" He smiled. "I wouldn't miss it." The night of the audition was electric. Lights, cameras, a theater packed with strangers. Callie stepped out onto the stage, clutching her guitar like a lifeline. Marvin sat in the front row, hands clasped. She sang a song she wrote herself, about a church bench, about hunger, about a man who gave her his last $5 and ended up giving her a life. By the time she hit the last note, the entire auditorium was on its feet. She didn't win the show. But she won something else. The video went viral. People across the country reached out, offering scholarships, recording deals, mentorships. She and Marvin were invited to speak at youth shelters and schools. And through it all, they remained together. Marvin officially became her legal guardian 6 months later. Years passed. Callie went on to record her first album and started a non-profit to support runaway teens. Marvin stayed in Dayton, still working at the church, still fixing broken things. Only now, people called him Dad. And every time someone asked Callie where it all started, where the music, the healing, the hope came from, she'd say, "One cold night, a stranger paid for my sandwich. And nothing's been the same since."